CNN entertainment correspondent Elizabeth Wagmeister is here with more on her exclusive reporting. Elizabeth, tell us what you're learning.
We have learned from two sources that potential witnesses have been contacted and notified by federal investigators that they may be called to testify.
We drink, I felt so because I was paid as a stripper at Lyrical. I know what it takes to be drunk. I felt way more up.
Have you ever watched a powerful empire begin to crack right before your eyes? That's the question swirling around the music industry today, as accusations against Diddy, once seen as unstoppable, keep piling up at an alarming rate. His rise to fame seemed invincible: chart-topping hits, glamorous parties, and an iron grip on the pulse of hip-hop culture. But the latest stories from former allies, ex-partners, and industry insiders suggest there's a whole other side to Diddy's world, a darker, more manipulative side that's slowly being exposed. With lawsuits stacking up and even more individuals stepping into the spotlight, it feels like his long-standing empire could be one revelation away from crumbling. Yet for all the shocking headlines, there are still looming questions. When did it all start? Who came forward first? And why now? Most importantly, how much longer can one of hip-hop's biggest moguls outrun the growing storm of claims against him? Buckle up, because if you thought the rumors were wild, the real story might leave you speechless. Word on the street is that once upon a time, Diddy's name was enough to open any door in the entertainment world.
I think the music industry is one of the most corrupt industries on the planet. And I know somebody personally, and I'm not even going to go into details, that did one of the biggest hits of Biggie's career. And he told me when he sent the beat to Puffy, he just stole it from him. So just from the amount, how you doing business, you cannot do business that way and expect for you to continue to be successful, because eventually it will come back. So we always heard about, from that standpoint of view, just doing people dirty, just sneaking people for money, and every evil thing you can think of, they just, So that's sad, because when you come from our background and we get into the music industry, for example, and they start becoming these CEOs, the first thing they start talking about, man, we're gonna do our own record company because we tired of the white man stealing from us. You know what I mean? And then you get these black CEOs, they come do the same exact thing to black artists. Yeah, so you keep seeing that cycle where you that's why the music industry, I always say, is one of the most corrupt industries on the planet, because, everybody's out for themselves. You know what I mean? Everybody's out for themselves. So the same thing they complain that the white, CEOs are doing, the black CEOs do it to the same thing to the artists.
So when you see the situation that Diddy in right now, right, you're not surprised?
It doesn't surprise me. Yeah, it doesn't. You know what I mean? We just always heard he was cutthroat. I'm surprised he survived that long. I used to say, well, he probably rubbed shoulders with the people. Those, I don't get into that conspiracy, Illuminati and stuff like that when people start saying it, but I definitely believe that it's in the music industry, there's some higher people that's very corrupt and evil. And I remember when we first, and I didn't really understand it, but when we first, the time that I first met Pac, we was in a group called Dromicidal. We went from being young thugs to Dromicidal, then we became the Outlaws. And I remember when Pac was locked up and we would go visit him, and he was telling us that, because when we were Dromicidal before the Outlaws, we had a quick record deal with Interscope Records. And I remember when Pac used to say stuff, he was like, I swear to God, he used to say, you're gonna go meet this person at Interscope, and they devils. I didn't really understand what he meant by that. He's like, but you gotta play it right, and they gonna give us a record deal, but they just straight devils, you know what I mean? So, and now I understand. These people cutthroat, you know what I mean? You don't see no CEO. If you look at any rap record, the CEOs from these rap records, they're not part of our community. Meaning that they come from a different background than us. Most of them are ran by certain individuals. And what happened is they never get back to the community. You never heard of the CEO of Interscope Records, the CEO of Sony Records. These people making billions of dollars off of black music. You never heard them once say, let's open up a school in the black community. Let's give healthcare to the rappers. Let's go open up community centers for the black people. But they taking all this money. You understand? When an individual died, have you ever heard of a record company that paid for a funeral of a dead rapper? Besides Suge Knight, Suge paid, you know, when Pop put it in his will, he wanted to go cremate it. Suge paid $1 million to cremate him. But these people, so now when I think back and when Pop was calling them devils, it's like these people are really devils. They just out for money. They don't care who die in the process. They don't care what happens in the process. They don't care who lives are destroyed, as long as that money coming in.
Yeah, that's real talk, man. But for me, right, when I look at the situation, I look at it like karma. You know, he finally getting everything back that he got away with from back then. And, you know,
arrogance, you gotta humble yourself. You know what I mean? You gotta understand, like, you can't carry yourself with that arrogance as if you're untouchable, because the creator of the heavens and the earth can destroy you 1 second. And I maybe he's saying that now. Sometimes people be thinking they're untouchable because they get away with certain things so much, and they get careless and they get arrogant. And I think that's what...
He signed huge talents, shaped the modern sound of hip-hop, and hosted legendary events that made headlines for their extravagance. But behind this glitzy front, multiple people are now speaking out about what they call a pattern of control, manipulation, and intimidation that extends far beyond typical celebrity behavior. We're not just talking about 1 or 2 disgruntled ex-employees. The list includes past associates, women who once dated him, and even people who claim they had only brief encounters, but still walked away feeling used or manipulated. At first, these stories were dismissed as rumors, fueled by tabloids always hungry for the next big scandal. But as more and more individuals stepped forward, the conversation shifted from idle gossip to a very real wave of accusations. Some describe these experiences as subtle mental games, claiming Diddy had a knack for pinpointing people's vulnerabilities and using them to gain an upper hand. Others mention more extreme stories of blackmail or even physical intimidation, allegations that have escalated into lawsuits. A few have gone on record, describing how frightened they felt to speak up. After all, Diddy's influence in the music and entertainment world is massive, and crossing a mogul like that can come with heavy consequences. Suddenly, we're witnessing a chain reaction. One accusation sparks another, which sparks another, until the stories aren't just a flame, but a roaring blaze. And amid all this, Diddy himself seems to be battling multiple fronts. Fresh lawsuits, past relationships unraveling in court documents, and entire communities on social media picking sides. What started as whispers in the corners of industry events has evolved into a united front of voices, each providing pieces to a puzzle that points to a bigger, more complex story. One by one, people are sharing details that cast a shadow over his public persona as the life of the party, the unstoppable mogul who seemingly had it all under control. And if you're wondering where this all began or how it accelerated to this point, you only have to look at one of his most notable former partners, someone who was by his side for nearly a decade, witnessing the reality behind the polished image. But was she the only one brave enough to speak up? You might ask. Well, that's where this saga really starts heating up. For a long time, Cassie was best known as the mesmerizing singer and model who captured Diddy's attention both on and off stage. The two had a high-profile relationship, lavish vacations, red carpet appearances, and constant speculation about marriage. On the surface, it looked like a textbook celebrity romance. But behind the Instagram posts and paparazzi shots, insiders whispered that Cassie was living in a world far different from the glamorous public narrative. Their decade-long involvement ended in 2018 when she walked away, and the initial reaction was mostly shock. How could a couple that seemed so intertwined suddenly split? Yet the real revelations reportedly came after Cassie's departure. She never held a press conference or unleashed a flurry of tweets, but people in her circle suggest she quietly began sharing the emotional and mental toll that relationship took. Word started circulating that Cassie had felt stifled in nearly every aspect of her life: career decisions, financial choices, even what she could share online. It was as if Diddy's controlling nature extended way beyond their personal bond, bleeding into her professional aspirations. She was an artist in her own right, but found her potential stunted, allegedly because Diddy wanted to dictate her every move. Some say Cassie's decision to leave wasn't just about a bad relationship, it was a pivotal moment where one person's exit cracked open the carefully constructed facade surrounding Diddy. Once free, Cassie found the courage to cut ties and, in subtle ways, let people know she wouldn't remain silent if pushed. When Cassie walked out, she likely had no idea she'd be opening a floodgate of other stories. But that's exactly what happened. All it takes is one high-profile name stepping away for others to feel emboldened. Cassie's exit and the rumors that followed served as a catalyst. People who'd once felt isolated or intimidated saw that they weren't alone, that maybe Diddy wasn't as untouchable as he seemed. From there, the chorus of voices began to grow. Former associates, friends, and lesser-known industry folks started talking about experiences that mirrored Cassie's: intimidation, emotional manipulation, and a suffocating sense that he always had the final say. Cassie might never have intended to spark this firestorm, but the timing of her departure aligned with a new cultural moment, one more focused on empowering survivors to speak out. Still, you might wonder how these personal revelations turned into something far more serious, dragging Diddy to courtrooms and headlines. That brings us to one of the most unsettling cases yet, a legal battle that has the power to shape the final outcome of Diddy's public reckoning. Not long after Cassie's story simmered in the background, another shocking claim emerged. This time, it was from someone known to the public only as Jane Doe. Her lawsuit wasn't just tabloid fodder, it was a stark, detailed account of alleged mistreatment that spanned years. The lawsuit cited emotional, psychological, and even physical dimensions that went beyond the usual he said, she said dynamic. From what's been revealed, Jane Doe's allegations depict a man who didn't just misuse power, he weaponized it. The claims paint a picture of someone who knew exactly how to corner people into silence. If her story is true, Diddy leveraged his fame, wealth, and considerable industry reach to keep her under his control. The manipulative tactics reportedly ranged from threats to more tangible forms of intimidation, including legal and financial repercussions if she dared to leave or speak out. What makes this case even more consequential is that Jane Doe isn't standing alone. As soon as her lawsuit became public, other individuals started sharing experiences that echoed her allegations. They described a pervasive sense that once you stepped into Diddy's orbit, you had to play by his rules, or risk everything. The courts are still sorting through the details, and Diddy's defense team has predictably tried to shut down these claims, framing them as baseless. Yet the conversation has already turned. It's no longer just about whether any single story can be substantiated. It's about the repeated patterns that multiple people have pointed to: intimidation, a hunger for control, and an ability to skirt accountability. If proven, the Jane Doe lawsuit could become a landmark event, the kind that redefines how entertainment powerhouses are held responsible for long-buried secrets. Already, it has sparked a wave of investigations into Diddy's relationships, professional dealings, and the environment he created in his social circles. Jane Doe's willingness to confront one of the most influential figures in music is a testament to a cultural shift where even the highest wattage stars can't hide from scrutiny forever. And it seems this legal battle has only added more fuel to the fire, igniting fresh discussions about Diddy's infamous parties and what really took place behind their carefully curated glamour. For years, Diddy's all-white parties were the stuff of legend. Lavish gatherings where the biggest stars in music, fashion, and Hollywood strutted around under swirling lights, draped head to toe in white. They symbolized extravagance and exclusivity, with media outlets drooling over every invitation list. On camera, these events looked like magical nights of celebration and carefree indulgence. But some say the real drama happened when the cameras stopped rolling. In recent interviews and social media confessions, guests have hinted that these so-called white parties might have been less about innocent celebration and more about pushing boundaries. The rumors suggest questionable substance use, exploitative interactions, and even secret backroom dealings. Individuals who attended say that once you were inside, you were expected to play by Diddy's rules, or risk getting thrown out of that inner circle altogether. Whispers also circulated about how meticulously controlled everything was, from the guest list to the ambiance. It wasn't just about creating a visually stunning experience, it was about exerting an almost eerie level of dominance. If you believed the rumors, some partygoers were there to network, yes. But many more were there because they felt an implicit pressure to show up and maintain good standing with the man at the center of it all. Some attendees recall feeling a persistent undercurrent of tension, as if you never quite knew what was going to happen or who might cross a line. There were also stories of people being recorded without consent or coerced into situations that left them feeling deeply uncomfortable by the time the party ended. Of course, no official footage has ever confirmed these scenarios, but the mounting testimonies are hard to ignore. When you contrast the glitzy, champagne-soaked images published in magazines with these behind-the-scenes allegations, you end up with two polar opposite narratives. One version portrays Diddy as the charismatic host who knew how to throw a party like no one else. The other suggests his iconic gatherings doubled as playgrounds for manipulation, feeding an already well-documented appetite for control. As more people share anecdotes of these events, it's harder for Diddy to maintain that they were mere celebrations. In fact, some accusations now tie directly to the lawsuits brewing against him. And with so many fresh revelations, it was only a matter of time before official authorities got involved, setting the stage for one of the most dramatic turns in Diddy's ongoing saga. In a scene that felt ripped from the plot of a high-stakes drama, Diddy's estate, valued at tens of millions, was swarmed by law enforcement officers carrying out a search warrant. The images of his high-end mansion suddenly buzzing with investigators signaled a major shift. This wasn't just tabloids playing up rumors anymore. Real agencies were looking for tangible evidence, suggesting that at least some of the claims against him had enough credibility to warrant serious investigative steps. People who've known Diddy for years describe this raid as a wake-up call. For so long, he'd managed to deflect lawsuits or settle them out of court, maintaining a polished public image while quietly resolving problems in the background. But that strategy seemed to crumble the moment authorities stepped through his doors with the power to rummage through his belongings. There's been no shortage of speculation about what exactly the investigators hoped to find. Some say they were looking for documentation linking him to financial misdeeds. Others claim the search was tied to the more disturbing accusations of controlling or abusive behavior. Either way, the simple fact of law enforcement physically entering his private sanctuary made one thing clear: Diddy was no longer protected by his celebrity status. News of the raid spread like wildfire across social media and entertainment outlets. Fans who once revered him looked on in disbelief, while critics suggested it was only a matter of time before the law caught up with him. Even those who'd never been swayed by rumors felt compelled to sit up and pay attention. House raids aren't exactly casual. When the dust settled, Diddy found himself facing a level of scrutiny unlike anything before. The sense of invincibility that once defined him was now in question. If those earlier allegations had been easy enough to brush off as rumors, the involvement of law enforcement turned them into a tangible threat. He was arrested, though his team moved quickly to secure his release, denying the accusations and downplaying the situation. Yet a single question kept echoing in the public sphere. Could Diddy finally face real accountability for the allegations trailing him for years? While only the courts can decide what happens next, the symbolic weight of this raid is impossible to overlook. It marked the moment Diddy could no longer dismiss everything as baseless. And with the next big revelation waiting just around the corner, the tension only escalated further.
50 Cent tells Diddy doc to Netflix after bidding war. Hey, I'm gonna put it like this, I'm gonna watch it. I think it's something that we all should watch, you know? And look, it's something that there are reasons why the industry is so quiet right now, too.
Enter 50 Cent, a figure as notorious for stirring the pot as he is for producing chart-topping hits. Whenever he sets his sights on a target, fireworks usually follow. This time, his claims are bigger than ever. He insists he's working on a documentary that will lay out every piece of incriminating evidence against Diddy, once and for all. In typical 50 Cent fashion, he hasn't held back. He's teased that he has a treasure trove of receipts, testimonies from others in the industry, never-before-seen documents, and maybe even undisclosed footage. The idea is simple but explosive. Put it all on a major streaming platform like Netflix, where millions can watch. For Diddy, this looming documentary is a potential nightmare. Lawsuits are one thing. He can contest them or settle. But a high-profile show that broadcasts damaging claims across the globe could be an entirely different beast. Once a narrative takes hold in the court of public opinion, it can be nearly impossible to reverse. Speculation runs high about who might be involved. 50 Cent has dropped hints that he's talking to people who have yet to speak publicly, individuals who might be able to confirm or even expand on the allegations that have already come to light. The result could be a kind of final straw, a point of no return for Diddy's reputation. Naturally, Diddy's defenders argue that this is just another case of 50 Cent stirring controversy to gain attention. But even if 50's motivations are personal or financial, there's no ignoring the gravity of a major documentary unveiling new stories. If the final product is half as explosive as 50 Cent claims, it could outshine any single lawsuit by presenting a unified, detailed account of Diddy's supposed behavior over the years. In many celebrity feuds, big talk fizzles out. But 50 Cent is persistent, and Netflix, or any streaming giant, is always on the lookout for the next big docuseries that'll draw eyeballs. The partnership seems almost inevitable, and that spells trouble for someone who has long counted on hush-hush settlements and carefully maintained PR to manage his controversies. At this stage, Diddy's entire empire feels perilously close to the edge. The tension is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. And as more headlines drop, a single burning question lingers. Is this the moment where everything that defined Diddy's stardom turns on him for good? So here we are, staring at a mogul whose name once stood for success, luxury, and influence. Today, headlines are drenched in words like exposed and accusations surfaced. Cassie might have been the first to crack his polished armor, but she was hardly the last. The Jane Doe lawsuit warns that courts won't treat high-profile figures gently if the evidence builds. And those infamous white parties now seem less glamorous, raising questions about what happened behind those velvet ropes. We've seen accounts pile up, from lesser-known associates to established industry names, indicating a seemingly unstoppable pattern of calculated dominance beneath Diddy's swagger. Then, the house raid ultimately proved no one stays untouchable forever. Looming is 50 Cent's promised documentary, which might be the final blow or the biggest hype train in recent music history. What happens next is anyone's guess. Maybe ongoing lawsuits push Diddy into a legal showdown he can't escape. The documentary might completely shatter lingering illusions of his presumed innocence, or he might settle and spin the narrative again. The entertainment world has seen plenty of downfalls that were merely detours. This time feels different. Social media now amplifies every story, and fans demand answers. More voices unite, ensuring these accusations can't fade away. Diddy's real legacy may not be his chart-topping hits or star-studded events. It could become a cautionary tale of someone who built an untouchable brand, only to watch it unravel for all to see. No matter your stance, fan, or skeptic, the revelations are impossible to ignore. Even powerful figures rise and fall, but not often under this level of public scrutiny. From Cassie's departure to Jane Doe's claims, from hush-hush party rumors to 50 Cent's bold promises, each new revelation gradually cracks the once impenetrable fortress. So here's the final question. Will Diddy's empire crumble under its own secrets, or will he somehow remain unscathed? The courts, the public, and even 50 Cent will weigh in, each ready to tip the scales. One thing's certain, no matter how this ends, the controversy has already reshaped the conversation around a man once known as the king of entertainment. Stay tuned. If the recent chaos is any indicator, more chapters lie ahead in this ever-evolving story. Who knows? The next revelation could be the one that finally changes everything.